Hi, I'm Colleen. Welcome to my art class. Let's get creating. And for today's project, we will be making a Halloween jack-o'-lantern. Alright, before we actually get into drawing our jack-o'-lantern, I want you to pause the video for 2 to 5 minutes and I want you to draw your own jack-o'-lantern. This is what's called a warm-up. This is to get your brain juices flowing, to get your hands nice and loose, so that you can be ready to draw our jack-o'-lantern together. So go ahead and pause the video, draw your own version of the jack-o'-lantern, and then when we get to the end of the video, you can compare your first jack-o'-lantern with your second jack-o'-lantern to see how much you've learned during this class. Go ahead and pause the video now, and you can push play again when you're done with your warm-up. Hello everyone! Today we're going to be learning how to draw a pumpkin. It is the fall season, the weather's getting nice and cool outside, and this seemed like a fun idea. Yours may not look exactly like this when you're done, and that is okay. This is just kind of the little stylish details are how I decided to create mine, but I'm going to show you the basics of how to create yours, and then some of those details you can change when we get to the end. But this is kind of the basic idea of what we'll be doing today. So I'm going to move this one out of the way. We're going to start on a blank piece of paper and show you how to do your own pumpkin. So you're going to need a pencil and an eraser. That's all you really need. And so the first thing we're going to do is start with a large oval. The thing with this is there are a lot of ways to do it and a lot of ways to not do it. I'm going to show you some of the not do it ways along with the do it ways, if that makes sense. So for example, some of you might draw an oval that is maybe too wide. In fact, this isn't even an oval anymore, it's more like a circle. If you start with a circle, it's still okay, we can still make it work, but ideally you want an oval. So this is what I don't want you to do for now. Don't do a circle. Another thing I don't want you to do, when you do your oval, start, see how I've got like about 1.5 inches maybe from the top of my page? I want to maybe even 2 inches. You don't have to measure it. If you want to be really careful, you could put like 3 fingers up there and make a little mark for the top of your pumpkin. And you could do like 3 fingers on the bottom and make a mark. That would be a good way to help you know how tall to make your oval. So if you want to do that, go ahead and do it. And then once you're done, when you do your oval, you want it to be nice and rounded, but like I showed you in the last example, not so round that it's a circle. We want it to be a tall, kind of skinny oval. Another thing that you maybe don't want to do is you don't want to make it too skinny. So if you're doing this, that's probably too skinny of an oval. You want it to be a little more round like this one. And see how, even I make mistakes when I do drawing. See how at the bottom of my oval maybe got a little too pointy? It's okay. That just means it's something I can fix. I'm going to fix that and make it just a little less pointy. I'm going to fix that curve there and use my eraser to round out the bottom a little better. One other mistake you might make is on your oval, maybe, this happens to me a lot, maybe one side is really round and maybe the other side's kind of lopsided like this. Can you see that example? See how I like cut out almost a whole chunk over here and I've got this pointy part on top? That happens a lot when we're first learning how to make ovals. So what you could do here is go back to the part where it started to get skinny and try really hard. You can fix that. Just try really hard to look carefully at it and see if you can get it to be nice and round again. Okay, same with here. I made another mistake down here. I've got this little point. So I'm going to go back to where the point is right before it starts to bend in and try to fix that edge and make it rounded. So it's totally normal to make mistakes when you're drawing, and it's also totally fine because we have erasers, and it's okay to use erasers. And you know what? If your artwork has little eraser marks, like look at that. Now I've got an eraser mark on mine. That's okay. What that means is that I'm learning something new. Every time I make a mistake, I am learning how to be a better artist. So I'm not afraid of making mistakes in art, so I hope you're not afraid of making them either. But see how I took that mistake and I fixed it so that it's better? Is this oval perfect? Not really. You know, there are a lot of things I could fix. It still has kind of like a little point right there that I could fix over here. It's still kind of wobbly here, or maybe a little too wide. Like, there are a lot of things I could fix. So if you want to pause the video and take a minute to get your oval nice and round, that's okay with me. Even I have to stop and make a few corrections along the way sometimes. So I took this oval that didn't look super great, and I've been working on it and tweaking it until I have a much more rounded shape. Now, it does take a lot of practice to get a really good oval. So if you have to pause the video and try a few times to get a really good oval, that is totally fine. I'm going to go back to the oval on this page just because it's right in the middle, and that's going to be really good for doing my pumpkin. And I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next step. After I have my nice round oval in the middle, I'm going to actually come up here to the top, not quite at the tippy top, but I'm going to move over just a little bit, make a little mark on this side and this side, so that I have a little curve here with two marks. I don't know if you can see those two little marks. I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom. I'm going to come down here. I could start at the tip, but I'm going to move to the side a little bit and make a mark, and move to this side a little bit and make a mark. These marks are where my next oval is going to start and stop, right here and right here. So I'm going to go to the top, and I'm going to go back to that mark. Can you see that okay? And I'm going to try, see this nice curve that I have here? I'm going to try and get the same curve on my next oval, but I want it to poke up a little bit. In fact, see how high this one is? I almost want it to poke up as high as this, if not a little bit higher. So I'm going to poke it up first. See how I'm bumping it up so that it's a little higher than this one? Then I'm going to curve it back down, and I want to try to follow this shape. I almost want it to be the same width all the way down. See how it's the same? If I were to put a finger on this line and a finger on this line and follow it down, it would be almost the same. And I'm going to do that all the way down. It's okay if you have to pick your pencil up and start again. And then when I get down here, I'm going to do the same thing. It's going to connect here, but I want it to come down, not quite as low as this one. I actually want it to come a little bit above that. So if I were to draw a light line here, straight across, like as if it were the ground. It's not the ground, but I want this one to come slightly above that. I don't really want it to touch that line. Although, you know, if it does touch the line, it's actually okay. So I'm going to, you just don't want it to go below, that's for sure. I guess I changed my mind. So it's going to touch that line and then curve back up, and see how I've kind of like, it's not lined up yet? That's okay. That's where I get to fix my mistake a little bit. But I'm going to try to make it as even as possible all the way down. And then anywhere I messed up, I'm going to go and erase those mistakes. Now, I'm going to show you an example of maybe some mistakes that could happen with this. So I'm going to go to my nice big round one here. One thing you could do wrong is you could accidentally start right here at the tip top. And I want to show you that that kind of doesn't give us the effect we want. If I start too high at the tip top and go all the way to the tip bottom, it doesn't have that bumpy feel. See how this one has a nice bump feel to it? This is one that I don't want to do where it starts way at the tip top. I want to make sure I go down before I bump. And I want to come here before I bump. Can you see the difference there? I don't want this second one to touch the top. Another mistake that you could make is you could make it too skinny, like this. Unless you, I guess you could do a really skinny pumpkin if you want to, but You want it to try to be as close as possible to matching the width all the way down from top to bottom. So try not to make it too skinny. Try not to make it too fat or too round, because that could look funny too, right? What you're trying to do is get it as even as possible from top to bottom, and then have your little bump. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to go up a little bit, and then I want it to try and match, especially the width on this side. I'm going to try to match the width over here. In fact, this one's already a little too skinny, so I'm going to make it a little bigger. And when I jump down here, go down to my line and back up. And anywhere I made a mistake, I'm going to go erase my lines. And you know what? Mine's not perfect. I bet yours isn't perfect either, and that's totally fine, because part of what makes this fun is seeing all the cool different projects that people do, and seeing how different everyone's style is and everyone's talent. That's all kind of fun to see. So I could make this a little wider at the bottom if I want to make it match a little better, but you don't have to be as nitpicky as me if you don't want to. So now that we have our first two little bumps on each side, and if I ever start going too fast, you just pause the video until you can get caught up, and then you can push play again when you're ready to move to the next step. So now that we've got our two bumps on each side of our center oval, we're going to add one more bump, but this time we definitely want to get higher. So see how I made a pretend ground here? This isn't really the ground. This is just going to help me move my pumpkin a little higher. So I'm going to go to my next bump. Remember, we don't want to start at the tip top. I'm going to go down to the side just a little bit and make a mark. I'll do the same thing over here. Just a little bit and make a mark. I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom. You're going to go to bottom tip here and move up a little bit. But this time, I think we need to move up a little more than this one, because we really do need this one to come higher than the bottom of that. If we want this pumpkin to look like it's really sitting, you know how a pumpkin has all these bumps that go all the way around the sides? If it's sitting and you're kind of looking down at it from above, the bottom is going to appear to curve up on a paper, like in this example. If I were to draw that same line across the bottom here, or if I just hold my pencil next to it, see how the front bump is lower than these two side bumps? And these two side bumps are lower than these two side bumps. That tells us that this pumpkin is sitting at an angle and we're looking at it in perspective. So the bumps are going to curve back in the distance around. So ideally, what we should really be trying to do is getting these two bumps to be a little bit higher than this bump. I didn't show you that the first time, so if you want to keep it that way, you can. If you would like to make it look like it's more 3D, more curving back in the distance, I would come a little bit higher here and make your bump come a little bit higher. See how that's not touching the line now? And then you can just curve it back into your oval. Same thing over here. A little higher so it's not touching the bottom. You can curve it back into your oval. Okay, you can choose if you want to do the one that's touching the line, or if you want to add some perspective and scoot that up a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and erase the one that's touching the line, because I really like how it looks when it's scooping up a little bit. It makes it feel like it's more realistic, like it's really sitting there on my front porch. Okay, can you see that difference now? See how these two bumps go higher up on the page than this bump? That's a good start. So now I'm going to go and add another bump on this side, but same thing. I want it to be a little higher than these two bumps. So if I draw a straight line here, that means this next bump, the bottom tip of it needs to be higher than that line. So see where I did my little mark? I'm going to come up a little, do this mark and this mark. Remember, those marks need to be a a little higher. This is where I'm going to start my bump. Then I'm going to come down and not touch the line. See how I did not touch the line? And curve up and make my last pumpkin bump. And I can come from the top and I can meet in the middle if I want. And on the top one, I kind of want it to get a little higher than this one. That's going to make it feel like my pumpkin is more 3D as well. So this one's going to go a little higher. I'm going to come around and connect at the bottom. And if this last bump is a little bit wider, that's okay. It probably, or a little skinnier. Either way, it's okay if it's not perfect because the perspective here on this particular bump is a little different. In fact, you don't have to be as particular as me, but I actually like this curve better, so I'm going to make this curve a little more so that they match better. I'm going to be making all these little changes along the way, and if you want to make them with me, you can, but you really don't have to because I am definitely more of a perfectionist. Okay, I'm going to come on this side, go to my spot, make my bump a little higher than the last one, come down and around. Now this bump, I don't want it to touch my line, so it's going to come up here, connect to my other bump. Now we're being super careful with these bumps, right? Some people might say we're being way too careful, like this is way too much work for a pumpkin. And you know what, that's okay if they want to say that. This is just the way I like to do pumpkins, and I think it makes them look realistic. Now, I actually think that my side bumps, even though they're not touching that line, I still want them to be a little shorter, just because for me, it will feel like it's going back in the distance a little better. So I'm actually going to cut this one off a little quicker. And I'm going to cut this one off a little quicker. And you can decide for yourself if you want to make all the little changes I'm making or not. You don't have to do them exactly the way I'm doing them, but I'm giving you some basic ideas on how to do this pumpkin. Okay, there, I do like that a little bit better. So see how I have this nice curve from bump to bump? If I were to connect all the bumps, bump, 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 it's making kind of a curve shape, and that's good. That's what helps my pumpkin look like it's more realistic in 3D perspective. Same with the top. If I connect these bumps, I want them to make that same curving shape. Okay? Now after I've made my oval and my 2 bumps on each side, I'm going to come to the top of my pumpkin and make the stem. Now, what I see a lot of people doing, this is what I don't want you to do. I don't want you to, here, let me draw another bump so we have a pumpkin here. What I don't want you to do is just go like this. Draw a little rectangle. That's a bad idea. That's what our brain tells us a stem looks like, but that's not really what a pumpkin stem looks like. I have pumpkins growing in my backyard, and none of them poke straight out like that. In fact, most of them have a bit of a curve to them. So what I would suggest is that you come here behind your second bump on the left, and I suggest that you make a curving stump like this. And then at the end, you can make kind of a little oval. It can be a wiggly oval because wig stems aren't always perfect circles. And then you can follow that shape a little bit, bring it back around, and then connect it back to your pumpkin head. Because the whole top of this is turning into the stem. The whole top of that pumpkin is becoming a stem. So that's why you don't want to just do the little rectangle like this. That's what you don't want to do. Instead, we want it to feel like it's connecting to the top of our pumpkin, curving around. And if you would like to, you could add a few lines to make it feel, to give it that wood-like feel, because the stem kind of looks like wood, doesn't it, when you see it on the real pumpkin in the field. So after we've done our stem, if you need more time to do your stem, you can pause the video for a second. But after you've done your stem, we're going to add a few pieces of pumpkin that we can see on the back. So I'm going to come to this bump, and this time it's okay if I bump it right on the tip top. I'm basically going to try to see how wide these bumps are. I'm going to try to make a bump that looks very similar. I want it to go a little higher, and it's going to come and hide behind my stump right there. Now it looks like I can see part of the back part of the pumpkin hiding behind there. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I'm going to go to the top of my bump and make a little bump that hides behind my stem. And I'm going to do it one last time. I'm not going to go to the tip top of this. I'm going to come to the side a little bit. I'm going to bump one more time to hide behind that stem. Now it's looking like my pumpkin's a little more 3D. If you're looking at a pumpkin just straight from the side, then all your bumps probably will line up perfectly. As perfectly as you can make them, because it will just look like you're looking at a pumpkin straight from the side. But because this pumpkin, we're looking at it from a little bit above, as we rotate the pumpkin toward us, certain pieces will be visible from the top, and certain pieces will not be visible from the bottom. Now this is a more exaggerated way to do it. Doop, doop, doop. But you want it to look like you can kind of see the pumpkin from the top there. And that's what we're trying to do with this. You've got the curve on the bottom and the curve on the top. You could almost make an oval shape. If you connected all these bumps together, it would make a little oval shape, and that's how we know that we're kind of looking at it from the top a little bit, which looking at it from the top and drawing it like that makes it feel more realistic, makes it feel like we've got it in a perspective better. So hopefully your pumpkin's looking something like this, and if it's not exactly the same, that's totally fine because we're all a little bit unique. Some pumpkins have even got more interesting shapes than this. Some of them might have like a big top and a skinny bottom. So maybe in the future you could experiment and make some pumpkins that are big on top and skinny on the bottom. Or that are small on top and wide on the bottom. Because there are some pumpkins like that too. In fact, a lot of pumpkins have big bottoms and small tops. So you could experiment making your pumpkins a little different. See how I made the tops wider and the bottoms skinnier on this one? And the bottoms wider and the tops narrower on this one? These are just ways you can make the same pumpkin, but you can change the shape of it, okay? But every single time, the bottom bumps are curving up, and the top bumps are making like an oval. Curving up, making an oval. That's the trick to getting it to look 3D and realistic, okay? So now that we have our pumpkin, we get to add some of our cool details. Now, here's something to think about though when you're drawing, if you're going to make a jack-o'-lantern. Each time we have one of these lines, the pumpkin, if you think about the shape of the pumpkin, it's actually curving in, and then curving in, and then curving in. Kind of like this, all the way around the pumpkin. Curving in, curving in. That's how the pumpkin shape is going all the way around. So when you draw your jack-o'-lantern shape, when you draw your jack-o'-lantern eyes or your jack-o'-lantern mouth, you have to think about the shapes curving in at the points. So I'll give you an example of what I mean here. On my last pumpkin, I did triangles, lots of triangle eyes, a triangle nose. You can choose if you want to do square pumpkin eyes, or if you want to do circle pumpkin eyes, or if you want to do, I don't know, any kind of pumpkin eye you can think of. It could be a angry looking pumpkin eye, like he's mad at somebody, right? You get to think of the kind of pumpkin eyes you want. I think I'm just going to do another triangle, just because I kind of like the triangle. So when my triangle gets to this line, I need to curve it like it's going around the edge. So I'm going to curve it up, boop, and then curve it back out. So see how this part of my triangle has kind of a funky shape? It's not a straight line. And that's okay. That's part of what makes it look more realistic. This other side of my triangle can go straight because it's on a smooth part of the pumpkin. But when I do this one, it's going to go up. See how when it hits the line, it makes a little bend bends up a little bit? That's because my pumpkin is bending, and now this is making it look like it's bending. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Go towards there, bend it, and then finish it off. And then make this one smooth. I'm going to bend it. Every time it hits a line, I'm going to bend it a little bit. You don't technically have to do that part. That's kind of more advanced. So if that's too hard for you, then you can just draw the regular shape, okay? I'm going to put a little eye in here. Maybe I'll do a little round eye. I want it connected though. Remember, pumpkin's eyes have to be connected to the skin or they're going to fall off. And then I'm going to do my jack-o'-lantern mouth, but I'm going to do the little bendy thing when I hit the lines again. So I'm going to make a nice big smile, but when it gets here, it's going to go up. It's going to come out again. Up, up. There we go. See how it curves in every time I hit a line? That helps it follow the shape of the pumpkin. I'm going to do the bottom half of his smile, doing the same thing. Pumpkins, jack-o'-lanterns need to have teeth. I don't need the line going through the middle now because it's kind of like I just cut it out with my knife. He looks kind of funny, huh? Toothless. So let's see. Do we want pointy teeth? Do we want square teeth? Do we want circle teeth? You get to decide. Maybe I'll do some round teeth to match his round eyes. So I'm going to put well, maybe. He seems so gentle with round teeth. Gentle jack-o'-lantern. So I'm going to put 2 round teeth on. Down here. 1 down here. You can decide how many teeth you want to put in your jack-o'-lantern, okay? 1 here. 1 here. That's quite a funny smile, I'd say. Okay. After you've put your teeth on there, you can erase the lines where the teeth connect, because we want the teeth to feel like they're still connected to his skin. These bottom teeth, same thing. I think I have to add that last tooth after all. I keep changing my mind. He just needs all his teeth in. And then if you would like to add a nose, you can, but you don't have to. You could do a triangle nose, you could do a square nose, you could do a circle nose, you could do an oval nose, or a curvy nose. You can decide what kind of nose you want. I'm going to do, maybe I'll do a round nose to match his round teeth and his round eyes. And then another thing you could do, if you want to, you could give him a little eyebrow on each side, or you could give him a big eyebrow. That's okay too. You could have big eyebrows if you want. And there is our basic jack-o'-lantern. Now there's one last thing we have to do, and that is make the inside part of our jack-o'-lantern look 3-dimensional. Now there's a little bit of a trick to that. We're going to use some perspective, 1-point perspective, but I'm not going to go into great detail on perspective. I'm just going to show you a trick to make him look more real. So I'm going to go to the outside edge of his eye here. See this nice long line? And I'm going to come in just a little bit and draw another line. But I'm going to stop right here at the corner and make a diagonal to connect it to the corner. This part might be a little confusing, and if that's the case, don't stress too much. You can leave this part out if it's too hard. So I'm going to draw a little line from that corner, then I'm going to come to the top of his eye and draw that same diagonal, and then follow the shape of my eye. I'm basically going to draw a little diagonal from all the inside corners. What I'm trying to do is trace this same shape, but inside my pumpkin. So that's that shape. Oh, it bumped into my eye. I'm going to follow the eye around. See, I'm tracing the shape. It's almost as if you were to take two pencils and line them up together, trace the outside, and do the same thing on the inside. So then I trace this eye, trace that, but whenever it bumps into the edge, you'll stop. So same over here. I'm going to line up my pencils. I'm going to trace this line so they stay together, but if I bump into something, I'll stop. I can't draw there because it's just bumping in. Oh, but I can trace. I'm going to draw the diagonal the opposite way. This part is kind of more of an advanced principle, so if you are an older student, you could do this part. If you're a younger student, you might want to skip this part that I'm doing just because it's kind of complicated. But if you look at it, it looks more 3D now. You're going to be basically copying the outside edge, but going in your pumpkin a little bit. And this is going to give it a 3D look. I have another video that I've done, or that I'm going to do, that will talk about how to do this kind of 3D perspective. So I'm not going to go into great detail on it right now because I can explain it even better in my other video. But that's the idea. So I'm going to do the same thing with the mouth. I'm going to trace this bottom edge, but a little bit on the inside. So I'm going to come inside a little. I'm going to try to follow the shape of this. It curves here. It comes into this tooth. Once it hits the tooth, it bumps up. And it bumps up. Comes to this tooth. It bumps up. And it still follows the edge all the way to the end. That's going to give me that realistic feel. I'm even going to do the inner sides of these upper teeth. But you don't have to do that because that part's kind of confusing. I'm going to do the same thing with the nose. I'm going to follow the bottom edge like this. And these guys are a little small. It's too hard to do that there. So if you want to learn more about how to do perspective like this, you can go watch that other video. But this is the basic idea of our jack-o'-lantern. He looks pretty cool, I'd say. Now the last thing you need to do, since this was our pretend ground, this isn't the real ground, I actually want him to be sitting on like my porch step or something. So if you want it to look like he's realistically sitting somewhere, you're actually going to draw a line kind of behind him. And it's going to go all the way across. I don't know if I lined it up very well. Do your best to line it up. So if I put a little line behind him like that, then it will feel like he's actually sitting on something. If you want it to look more like a porch step, you could draw another line in front of him, like this, and you could kind of draw the steps. So I'm going to put another step right up here behind him. And then I'm going to take the same width of this one, actually maybe slightly smaller. So it's starting to look like if you're climbing the stairs, here's the up part and here's the flat part, and then the up part and then the flat part and then the up part. So now it kind of looks like he's sitting on my porch steps. Or if you'd rather that he sit in like a bale of hay instead of porch steps, you could come in and start drawing some hay on the bottom. That's what I did with my other one. I drew some hay strands underneath him. So it looked like he was sitting on a pile of hay. So you can choose if you want a porch step or if you want hay. But either way, that is how our finished jack-o'-lantern is going to look. Obviously I drew some extra doodles on the sides. You don't need to have those extra doodles. I was just trying to give you some ideas for how you could draw eyes and nose and mouths. But there's our jack-o'-lantern. If you need to make any adjustments or tweaks to make it even better, now is the time to do that. And then you could even color your jack-o'-lantern if you want to when you're all done with him. You could either leave him as a line drawing, or you could take some markers and you could trace your lines, or you could color him with crayons or colored pencils, or you could do a combination. You could trace the lines with marker and color the inside with colored pencils. There are so many things you could do to make a really cool Halloween pumpkin. So that is all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed making a Halloween pumpkin with me. I hope you'll share your drawings with me. There's a link in the description below to tell you how to do it. I can't wait to see what your jack-o'-lanterns look like. Thanks for creating with me. His first layer of orange. If you enjoy what you see here, go ahead and like the videos, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and I'll continue pumping out great content for you and your family. Thanks again for joining me.